All right, so good morning, folks. Back here at the Green Guru podcast. Trevor here with my wife Melanie,
Hello, how's it going?
and we were just talking. We figured we record some of the stuff that we were talking about because it's important, real world stuff, and I don't know. It's fun. It's nice to have an open conversation about issues and just sharing information. So, um, yeah, we were talking about the environment, and obviously with COVID happening and stuff, we were talking about the effects of COVID on small businesses and stuff. But some of the more like overreaching ideas that I was having was that being an environmentalist is almost like paradoxical for humans. Like, I mean, obviously we are going to pollute to some extent, and it's not really avoidable. The only way that you can really justify like pollution is if you're adding more back to the environment, such as like a Native American or something like that kind of lifestyle where you're living off the land, not really taking much from it, and just kind of living symbiotically or in harmony off the land. But yeah, I mean, being a consumer, um, it's not really justifiable. Like if you're using any plastic or anything like that, I don't think. And then obviously, like being in the environmental industry, it's almost like it's like a fugazi. Like it's not even a real industry because you can't really profit the same way you can like if you're in makeup or something. Like obviously you can produce goods to make a profit, whereas like when you're good is the protection of the environment, you want to stop the production of goods. So it's like the opposite. You're continuously fighting this like social paradigm that we're stuck in, and it's not really like obviously we're screaming at the top of our lungs like it's not sustainable, it's not sustainable, but like there's only to some extent that people listen and they just go back to living their lives in their like culturally like programmed way as a consumer. So I think Melanie has something to say.
Yeah, just to kind of jump off of what you're saying is like, I feel the best way to kind of gain in this world of environmentalism is like not necessarily trying to think like we always have been taught to think. Like, we don't need to create a product and then market it and then sell it and then send it out. Like, obviously, that's one structure of making money, but I think we live in a day and age where you can kind of just make your life your product. And I think just like kind of showing that, it's like if we want to live off the land and farm and like start moving more in that direction, because like you said before we started our podcast, is like even relying on the grocery store for your groceries, which are like your weekly necessities, and like how easy and cheap it is to just grow your own produce and like get a chicken and like have your own eggs like right in your backyard. I feel like a lot of people are intimidated by that, and I know I definitely was, but I feel like I'm starting to become more comfortable with it as I learn and see more people doing it around me.
You don't really need pesticides either.
No, not at all. Especially with like, if you're not going on like a big, you don't have to have a huge property to farm. Like, you can have like just a regular sized backyard. Yeah, and even like a quarter of an acre, you can get the majority of your veggies for a couple seasons. But I don't know. I think it's just kind of like what I was saying, to tie it back to like, gaining profit in this industry, is I think it's just kind of like selling yourself in a way, like showing like what you're doing and like teaching people how to do what you do, you know? But anyways, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, so like subsistence farming, I mean everybody can do that, and then you save money that way even too, and like you learn a valuable skill. So there's really no reason that everybody shouldn't be growing their own food. It's literally like probably the most important life skill that you could probably have. It's at the base of everything we do as humans. I mean, we need food every day, and being close to like your food is essential almost.
Well, I feel like with as like a human race, we just like go farther and farther away from the land and, you know, being one with it and like learning how to like use it to the best advantage to produce food and consume the food you're creating and nurturing. But and I think that's in almost every single human, you know, with like it's in our deepest part of ourselves is like to nurture and like, you know, every single person that I know that's ever grown their own food or, you know, is has their house surrounded with house plants, you know, when they see that new growth, it's very rewarding. And I think, you know, it's instinctive almost in the human race to like do that, to grow your own food and like to watch plants grow and like to nurture things like that.
But as you may know, common sense is not common. And the things that we do in the farming industry should not be tolerated, for one thing. I mean, there's plenty of other corruption, but there's a lot of corruption within that that can be addressed. Yeah, I mean, it ties into the grocery store. There's just, it's not sustainable to have your food shipped from California just to get fruits and stuff. I mean, just eat the foods local foods that can be grown near you and start there. Like, I mean, if you just, you know, you're just starting out gardening and stuff, you can always shop at the farmer's market or, you know, get like, join a co op and get like eggs and that kind of stuff from a co op. And that's a good place to start. Everybody can afford that, and just start like understanding where your food comes from, and that will like start your journey towards a more sustainable like food system. It'll start our entire collective journey towards this local food system that we need so badly. I mean, if you look at COVID, the way that the meat industry has been impacted, I mean, it's a no-brainer that, you know, like people have been saying for ages that meats need to be, you know, processed in a much more local manner. The industry's set up to where like you can only have a large corporation really to have your own processing plant, which is not really sustainable at all, especially for local like small farmers. I know I'm a big Joel Salatin advocate because he stands for a lot of the stuff that environmentalists stand for as far as the farming industry, and he really knows, you know, what it takes to create like a, you know, a healthy, good animal and a good ecosystem. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing that though. I mean, we're dumping, you know, many tons of pesticides in the ocean every year, and those pretty much every single insecticide is toxic to fish. I mean, like super toxic. And not only that, but like the fertilizers that we use, they take oxygen out of the water. So then you have this huge dead zone. And it's just nonsense. I mean, there's no real reason for it. The whole basis on why you would even need a pesticide or a fertilizer is completely based on this monoculture thing that we have instilled in our minds that we have to grow one crop, in a field and that's it, which is not true. You don't need to do that. It might make it a little bit simpler to harvest, but it's not sustainable when it comes to when you add in the fact that you have to add fertilizer every year, when you have to not fertilizer, but when you have to spray pesticides because you're getting all these pests because it's only one crop and you're not having any, other crops to kind of even balance out the protozoa and things like that. And then you're not having any animals come through either to like rummage through things and like kind of balance out those bacteria. So, I mean, it's really we have taken common sense out of the equation, and now it's just completely like mechanical, almost like it has to be. All these checks and balances are removed, and we have to like artificially create some kind of checks and balance, like artificially add fertilizer, artificially remove biological pests that were naturally removed by other bacteria fighting them off. So it's something that's completely avoidable, but we just are too blind or too foolish to really see the mess that we've made.
I don't even think at this point that it is like foolishness. I think people are just completely blind to it. They don't even know there's another way to, get your food, or it hasn't like kind of hit them like, oh, why am I buying this zucchini for 99 cents when I could grow one plant with a seed that costs me a penny, and you can get like a ton of zucchini from that one penny. But I mean, and it's like a lot of people, it's just with like the hustle and bustle of America. But this year has really like kind of opened my eyes to like we were been forced to slow down and like really take in everything that we, kind of took for granted a year ago. And I don't know. It's just with like tying back to like the pesticides and stuff in like the one crop, like acres of one crop, like that is just so destructive. And like what's one thing that we need, that we know we need in order to sustain life on Earth? Fish in the ocean. Like we need fish in the ocean. Like it's not even like because they're getting overfished. It's literally because they're dying because of this unsustainable way of farming that really just happens in the U of A, United States, or sorry, U of A, University of Arizona. No, I'm just kidding. They're pretty sustainable. But no, the United States, it's like we really need to slow down. Like you don't need to make that much money. I mean, like stop living a life that's not accessible for you. We need to stop like marveling and like idolizing these people that are like millionaires and billionaires. Like just look at reality. That's probably not going to happen for you, but you can like still live an enriched life. And if you're not spending money at a grocery store on overpriced food and you're like growing the majority of it in your own yard, I mean, like that's one huge way to save money to like, pay for the things you want to pay for or whatever. I don't know. I'm kind of getting all over the place, but I don't.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off or anything. No, I just had a thought that I mean, yes, the fish are dying from the pesticides, but it was kind of like all tie it back together. I mean, we were fighting climate change, and with the carbon emissions that are heating up the oceans and killing the coral reefs and stuff. I mean, that all ties back to human activity, in my opinion. I mean, some people might try to argue that point, but I don't think. I think the data's in on that, and we're pretty sure that humans are driving climate change at this point and adding tons and tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. every day. But I mean, if you're getting your food locally and you're not getting it shipped, halfway around the world, you're saving carbon from getting in the atmosphere. And if you're growing more plants, then you're actually reversing climate change because they take the carbon from the atmosphere. So I mean, if everybody had a garden or grew some like large grasses instead of just the baby grass that everybody's accustomed to, that's a great way to sequester carbon and actually slow down the process of climate change on a large scale. If everybody did it, and it was like across the board, like everybody started gardening tomorrow, I mean, we would actually take tons and tons of carbon out of the atmosphere, which is great. I mean, we need to do that. It's not something that we should really think too hard about. It's a pretty no-brainer in my opinion. But yeah, that's what I was just thinking about. The oceans and stuff. Oceans are actually sequester the most carbon out of anything, which is kind of surprising because it's water, it's not plants or anything. But for some reason, I think it's like 95% of all carbon gets transferred into the ocean. So that's the first thing that will be affected by all this climate changeness. Did you have anything to add to that?
I think the point that we're just trying to make, and I mean, we're not perfect either, but like, just look at what grows locally in your area and start getting out of your comfort zone and like going to farmers markets and like asking farmers questions. Like, if you have no idea where to start, like, they're going to be your best resources for your specific area. And that's one thing that we can continue to learn and do is like learn about, what grows best here. And like, the cool thing about Arizona is we do get 2 growing seasons, which, a lot of people in the United States in particular, in Canada, like they can't really do that, unless they were to have like some sort of hoop house, greenhouse, and something like that, something that can sustain the cooler temperatures. But I guess just the point we're trying to make is like we can do better. Oh yeah, earth ships as well. Like that's a beautiful sustainable home where you can have the whole front of your house is literally a greenhouse, which is something that I'd really like us to do in the future. But that's like a whole other can of worms. But I just can't imagine, having this kind of area between like the home that you live in and then this all glass area that you can see outside, and it just be like lush with food and different types of plants. But yeah, I don't know, I guess that's just my point kind of talking about today is like we really need to start like shopping local, not only for our goods, for like clothing and like stuff like that, but also like going local and supporting your local farmers who are trying to do things in a more sustainable way. I mean, they have the resources and the knowledge to combat climate change, and they're everywhere. Every city has farmers, so we can always do better. We can always do better.
When you were talking about the earth ships, I thought of how much water we use too. I mean, water usage is big here in Arizona. I know they're like kind of talking about reforms there because it hasn't really rained, which is odd. I mean, I haven't lived here very long, but when you live in the desert, you kind of depend on rains, and a couple of years without really having a monsoon season, it could devastate the whole ecosystem here, really. I don't really know where coyotes get their water, but I mean, they have to drink water somehow. It's not like they can survive without it.
I mean, also, like, I know a lot of the desert animals will rely on prickly pear cactus and barrel cactus, like the wild stuff that grows natively, to get hydrated. And to be completely honest, the prickly pears aren't really producing a bunch of fruit because it hasn't rained enough, you know. I walk I drive by like just wild prickly pears, and they look completely depleted of water as well. You know, it takes a lot for a cactus to die from like not being hydrated, but still, like, that's very concerning considering, you know, like desert tortoise, like, I don't know if the toads do, but like desert tortoise, the javelinas, they all rely on eating those cactus and stuff for hydration in the summer months when it hits like that 105 and up. But, and then also, I mean, a lot of humans around where we live, you know, like I do know a few people that have rainwater harvesting, you know, like they do rely on some of that to water their gardens and stuff. And without rain, there's not much of a harvest there. So it's like you have to like rely then on the aquifers and the wells in your area at that point.
And it's not just Arizona that's running dry on aquifers. I mean, West Texas, they use the giant Ogallala aquifer that, you know, like back home in Nebraska, we're so lucky to have. We never really have to worry about water because we have so much underground, and we do get plenty of rain, but in snow, yeah, snow sucks. Um, no, it doesn't. It doesn't suck in places like Colorado where, you know, you get tons of snow drifts and then it melts and then it comes down the Colorado River to places like Arizona and California that are in desperate need of it because of all this climate change and all these droughts and stuff. It's only going to get more volatile, and frankly, it's just going to get worse. I mean, it's getting hotter, it's getting drier. We're seeing a lot of wildfires in California. We had a wildfire this summer in Arizona, up in the mountains, just in Tucson alone. But yeah, it's just, I mean, we as a country, we as a entire world, especially developed countries, have the means to change the way that we do business, the way that we live our lives. And I mean, it really should be a duty. I see it as like a war on climate change. Like everybody should be like going to battle against climate change, but they should be arming themselves with like these kind of skills like gardening, you know, like do it yourself, kind of like fix it up stuff. I mean, those are the things that are going to save our planet. It's like almost like you're trying to save the world, like in a you know, one of those basic comic book movies or something, like how they always save the world. That's what people should see climate change as. You're trying to save the world at the end of the day.
And then I just want to say one thing, like no shade, but I've had a few people being like, you know, I'm doing my best to be sustainable. I'm recycling my plastic. At this point, you should have been recycling your plastic like since childhood. I mean, that really doesn't matter as much anymore. Like, please keep recycling. But like, you start like looking at the soil you're buying and like, you know, right. And like the food that you're getting, it's like how many, like, is there a more sustainable option? Like when I went to Hawaii earlier this year, one of like the coolest things, I went specifically to Maui, but I was just in awe with every single local place. Like they care about the earth so much in Hawaii. It's like part of their like livelihood, and every single thing is compostable. I did not buy one thing that like couldn't compost eventually and biodegrade. and then like turn it into like a source of like, like enrichment in the soil. That was just like amazing to me that they had a solution for just like their tiny island. Now we need to start doing that state by state.
Yeah, Hawaii is definitely unique because it is an island and they have limited space, so they really are close to the like local. I mean, you're close to the local level at all times. Like it's not like they can just ship all of their waste onto a barge like they do in New York City and like ship it someplace else. I mean, you're really like living with your waste, right there on the island. So it's like they're hyper aware of the things that we take for granted, like landfills and whatnot. And I mean, it's a good thing. Every place should. I can't believe that in this day and age, in 2020, we still get styrofoam like to go boxes. Styrofoam should be illegal. Why the fuck are we still making styrofoam stuff? To be honest, like it's been illegal in Hawaii for like a couple of years.
And I'm sorry, but like really got to think about like, plants and stuff. There's got to be a solution to styrofoam that we can like produce from plants, like something that will biodegrade that works just like styrofoam. Like come on now, there is. Like I know that in particular like spray insulation in your house. I mean like that's got to be kind of like the same thing as styrofoam, right? And I know that they make like soy based ones, and like there is sustainable options. Like I just don't understand, isn't that cheaper to make too? I don't know, it's just so weird.
It's the whole paradigm of everything's based on oil. I mean, that's where the money's at, that they can afford to build the whole infrastructure, so then they just have control over it. They keep producing it. They obviously have the lobbying power to keep it legal. So it really comes down to what it's come to now, since we have completely decided that these things are the right thing to do, but politicians are the last ones to act, that it needs to be done at the local level. I mean, Tucson just declared a climate emergency. So it really does have to happen at a city level and then a state level, and then maybe one day, maybe, the nation will catch up. But social change always happens at the ground level, at the grassroots. And that's where it needs to happen with styrofoam, plastic bags, and the like. Plastic bags are illegal in Hawaii. I don't know if they're illegal in California yet, but
They charge you for them.
yeah, they charge you for them. I mean, you can always use the paper bags. They might cost a little bit extra, but it's worth it. Yeah, you can bring your own bag. That stuff's obvious. I mean,
I just want to point out, like you can say like, "Hey, I don't want any bags. Like just put it all back in the cart." If you go to the grocery store, that's something that I started doing when we would go to the grocery stores. Like they would start grabbing the plastic because we couldn't bring in our recycle bags, and I would be like, you can just put it back in the basket and I'll sort it when I get to my car. Might be like a little bit of an inconvenience on time, but it's something that I'm willing to do. It I just know that those little plastic bags drive me insane. And I know so many people in my personal life that just has like a cupboard full of them. And it's like, you don't need them.
I actually did want to point out, though, there are biodegradable plastic bags. There's water soluble ones, which is the ones that I think all bags should be water soluble. But a lot of the ones nowadays are actually cornstarch based, and they do biodegrade, but it takes a while. So I mean, don't think that all is lost if you do end up having plastic bags, because odds are they do. They might be made out of cornstarch, which is good, because that's the direction that we should be going. As long as we do have plastic bags, they should be biodegradable or water soluble. Especially water soluble, though, because of the ocean problems that we're having. I don't know why any coastal city would still have plastic bags or styrofoam or anything like that. It's just it's asking for problems down the road. It's not like something we can avoid. You're always going to be on the coast. It's not like the state is moving, so you're going to get plastic trash, on your front doorstep, kind of thing. I mean, if we didn't have landfills, everybody would know.
Yeah.
If you were forced to keep your trash in your yard, I mean, I was cleaning up that guy's yard, and he thought that he was his own landfill. Whoever lived in this property that I was cleaning up, he buried a bunch of trash in his yard, and it's like, well, I guess everybody else is not in my backyard. This guy's like, I want it. I want it here. I don't want to give the landfill my trash. I want to keep it.
You might just have wanted to like save a few bucks each month, you know, like not having to pay for trash to go to the landfill.
Whatever floats your boat, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, I mean, yeah, I mean, just imagine living with your trash and how much you produce. It's not sustainable. It's not.
I do think that that would be the biggest wake up call for people is like it's that same thing. Like, did you ever see like the Marie Kondo tidying up thing where she's like, take all of your belongings like of one item and just put it in a pile to like see just how much it is, you know, just for like perspective. And I feel like that would be something really fast. Like, I wish it would happen. I wish the landfills would just like be like, nope, we're done.
I actually did want to add too, like, in a way, like, I wouldn't mind working for waste management and stuff because they are really sustainable. Surprisingly, like they don't incinerate trash hardly anymore, and they've actually stopped adding to landfills. Surprisingly, in the U.S. because they're almost full. Almost all of them are full already, so they really do their best to recycle everything and compost everything, which is crazy. I was actually talking to a guy. I was doing like Uber and stuff for the Waste Management Open in Phoenix, and he worked for Waste Management, and he was kind of like doing, he was kind of like, one of the event coordinators, and was telling me about the stuff that they had in place. They had all the cups and everything were compostable, and I was actually pretty surprised because I mean, they kind of get a bad rap, like, oh, Waste Management, they're just a landfill company, but they actually are more sustainable than you think because they have to be. It's a private business, and they have costs and such that they have to, their guidelines. So, I mean, obviously you want to run your business efficiently, and they do. I mean, they do it the best way that they can. They conserve space, they recycle, and then they don't really pollute much in the air, which is great. I can't really say much for everything that they do, but at least I believe the guy and what he was saying.
I mean, we saw firsthand. I mean, we went to that, is it Refuge or something like that? Anyways, where we live, we kind of live out in the boonies of Tucson, but yeah, there's like this, it's a waste management area and you pay like to dump your trash. And I mean, like, I was actually kind of surprised when I walked in there and was like, oh, so it's like glass goes over there. Like they had like cardboard, scrap metal, like they had plastics, like they definitely had the whole recycling setup, which was nice. That I think people that rely on that to dump their waste, it kind of makes them like look and be like, oh, okay, so maybe I should start sorting out my own waste, and then when I bring it here, those things can be then reused. Also, I mean, one thing I just wanted to point out too, like tying back to the plastics, is like the one good thing about recycling stuff is like you can actually go to the grocery store and like sometimes there will be products that are made of plastic, but it's made from 100% recycled plastic. And I think that those are like kind of the things that you should be kind of gravitating towards, because that's supporting, something that's actually good and beneficial.
I think one thing that people need to be more hyper aware of is e-waste actually is really bad for the environment, and it's something that's going to get worse because I mean we're only technologically advancing, we're not going backwards. With that kind of stuff, they're still ramping up production on those things. So yeah, I mean we're going to get more sophisticated ways to recycle e-waste, but I wouldn't just rely on that to save us from like complete destruction from climate change and stuff, and just being up to our ears in waste. Like precious metals and things are really bad for the environment, and it's not something that's easily solvable. Like it's really hard to recycle computer parts because it is a process to like break it down into the base raw materials when it is like completely soldered together with metals and silicas and all these other different things all mixed together. So I mean just be aware, I guess. There are e-waste facilities that you can take your old TVs and things to, and it might actually cost money, but I think it's worth it in the long run. It's something that we need to deal with in a more direct manner, and not just kind of passively like, oh, I'll just throw it away, it'll be fine, kind of thing. It's not okay. We need to start at the consumer level. Just consume less electronic things. It's not like you need every electronic or thing to be electronic. Try to kind of reverse that. Start with a candle before you buy a light or something.
Even then you have to support, like, is like go for like the local candle made with like soy based materials. Like, don't go to Bath and Body Works. Those candles are terrible for the environment. They're not even that great for your health either to be smelling those fumes.
Yeah, they're petroleum based. Don't do that. Everything, there's an environmentally friendly alternative to everything if you just do the research. So I guess that's another skill that you need to have if you're going to be on the zero waste path and trying to better yourself and be more sustainable. So doing a lot of research is key, and really knowing your way around not only the internet but just around your own local ecosystem too. I mean, getting in touch with people like farmers, candle makers, etc.
And I just wanted to say one thing, and it might come across as a little harsh, but I think as an entirety of a society, we really need to stop being so ignorant with our waste and just, putting it in a plastic bag, throwing it in the dumpster, and then that being what it is. Because one day that's no longer going to be readily available for you, and you need to start learning better ways to deal with your waste.
Damn. I feel called out. I don't know. I still do that. I only do that though. I mean, we do compost our vegetables and stuff. You can't compost everything. Like you can't compost lemons, so I kind of throw those away. Eggshells, you can compost them, but it's kind of a pain to do that. You have to break them down with a mortar and pestle. So one day I think we'll do that. We did give them to the dogs for a while. They do like a little bit of eggshell, but I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's not easy being sustainable, and it's a lot of work. I mean, you ever compost toilet? That's literally the worst chore that you can possibly think of. Dealing with your own poop does not sound fun ever, but you have to do it. So you just you get better. You find more efficient ways to do things, and less gross ways to do things is probably the route that you will take. But I guess I kind of got off topic there.
Yeah, due to me. But I mean, and just because we deal with our like composting toilet doesn't mean like everybody's got to do that. Like, you know, that's not, I mean, it's right, it does save water, but I think we need to just start with like the products that we're bringing into our home and what we're throwing away, because I just know like it's like so many people in my family, it's like they don't even take the chance to like look and see if there's a secondhand option. They automatically just buy new. And we need to get out of that mindset. It like in particular, like one thing that we're going to have to get is like an infant car seat soon. And it's like, why wouldn't I just buy one from somebody that like, like their baby just grew out of it and it's not going to expire for a couple more years. Like, and I can get it for like $30 versus 200. Yeah, like buying used on Amazon. I mean, not trying to promote buying from Amazon. Like, please look and see if there's like a local option for whatever it is that you're trying to find. And just because there's a sale doesn't mean you need to buy anything. Like, I don't know.
I'm not completely anti Amazon either, because they actually do a good job of like connecting used goods to people. So it's not like, I mean, you're not wasting, all these new goods that or like partially used goods that could have just been thrown away or whatever, destroyed or returned and not used at all. So I mean, there's good and bad. Like I know a lot of people like talk crap on Bezos and stuff, but I mean, he really has done the most for climate change, in my opinion. I mean, he's invested the most money in really fighting it, and then they're like developing electric vehicles at a large scale. Electric planes even are in the works. So I'm not anti technological advancement at all. I think it's probably the way that we're gonna have to do things, because if we're gonna have businesses, still running the way that we live our lives, we're gonna need to like continue to advance our technologies to fight climate change at the end of the day.
I think like, just believing in technology and like, that is going to be kind of the future, and it can be a little bit intimidating because we're so used to doing things that way we've always done them. But it's like one day AI will just be like, oh, this is a more efficient way to do this. You know what I mean? Like, we won't even have to like really put our brains to thought when it comes to sustainability. But anyways, that's like far off in the future. I'm thinking like today though, it's like, what can you do to like just be a little bit more sustainably sound? Like, what can you do for the earth today? Because the earth has provided a lot for you.
There's a million and one ways to be more sustainable. And the fun part of it is you can figure it out on your own too. I mean, it's a creative process. It's not one that's, you completely rely on somebody else to tell you what to do, which is actually part of the fun part. I mean, we get buy a bus and then create our own dream layout of a bus, and we get to figure out how to build a house and do each part piece by piece and like learn each thing. And those are valuable skills that you don't just forget. If I was given a bus tomorrow, I would know what to do. I could build a tiny house if I wanted to. It's like it's things that people will pay you money to do. At the end of the day, it's not something like useless. Like I grew up playing video games, and it's like you beat the game, and then you're just like, I what happens now? Like it should just tell you like go outside. Like it's like you literally did nothing of real meaning, because it's just like your progress goes to nothing. Like it's literally on the game. All your progress is on the game, and you have to go back to the game to even marvel at what you accomplished. It's just like, in the game of life, your accomplishments are in your face. Like, every day I wake up and, I'm like, how can I improve my living situation? Because like every day I can build on top of my progress, which is the way that reward systems should work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add to that, other than I agree. I feel like, people need to be a little bit more aware of their time, and like it's like, what are you looking for today? Because most humans, like we do stuff in hopes of being rewarded in some way or acknowledged in some way, right? And like, I mean, just to tie what you're saying to like the environment, it's like when you use a recycled bag at the grocery store, like you walk away with a sense of pride. It's like, wow, I just like contributed like one less plastic bag, even if they're made out of cornstarch. But you know what I mean? It's just like, you think of other ways to like get that sense of reward and acknowledgement. And that's like the beautiful thing about trying to be more sustainable, buying local, buying from like somebody who like an artisan instead of like a corporation. It makes you feel good that you like voted with your dollar and you're like, no, I want to put my money into this option because it coincides with my morals and ethics. And I think as a society, that's just something that we really need to start shifting our mind into. And it's like, you can, stop wasting your time on the little stuff and like actually start making change in big ways.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not super straightforward like what I was saying earlier, but it makes sense to me because it's being like, this whole thing is a journey. Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to save money and do this and do that. I mean, it's like life-changing stuff. Like, you really do, it's like a lifestyle change, and it's not to be taken lightly. Like, we put an entire year of our life into like building a bus, and yeah, we still do it. And I mean, like, that speaks to like how much we have changed in that time. Like, and a lot of it is for the better. I mean, I would probably still be playing video games, just like my friends do or whatever, but I don't. No, and it's not. It's just my lifestyle. Like, I've changed my lifestyle for my own sake, and like, the reason why I'm saying this is because it changes your mind. Like, you're rewiring your brain and your reward system by building things with your hands, by growing your own food. It has a lasting effect on the way that you perceive things with, in sense of like how I get rewards. Like, you don't want to go for the like low hanging fruit. You don't want the easy like dopamine dump from your phone or whatever. You want the things that take a while, that you have to be patient for, that you have to invest time into, because those ones create lasting happiness, and they like fight anxiety and stuff. I used to have anxiety in college and stuff, and then when we were really getting going on the bus and stuff, I mean, like, working with your hands is literally like one of the greatest things that you can possibly do to like fight anxiety because it's just natural. I mean, other than that's the best way I can explain it to you is like it's like you're meant to do it, you know.
And I just want to add, like, it's not even just anxiety. It's also like doing things with your hands with like depression, you know? It's like before we got the bus, before we purchased the bus, my mom had just passed away. And I was really going through it, like mentally, like in this bus, like I think it really helped like push me through that entire year, that first year. And, like, if I wouldn't have had this to focus on, I can't even imagine. I don't necessarily have issues with anxiety, or not issues, like, I don't know the correct term, but I don't have anxiety. Like, that's not something that like comes to me, but I do get in depressed states. And I think that it's important to like kind of just like focus on something like inherently good and something that you're like really striving towards, and like a goal that you know will get you to a place of happiness. Like, I remember that first night we got to spend the night in the bus, and that there was just like nothing like waking up that next morning in our little home and like making coffee and like just being like, wow, like we did this. Like, we have water now. Like, and it's like now it's like we've really kind of like, it's like, yes, we take water from the aquifer, but then we use that water to water something outside, you know, like a plant or something like that. Um, that just kind of goes off topic a little bit, but you know, it's like that was like our biggest goal in doing this, was just being more aware of like that everyday waste that we use. But yeah, so anyways, but we're not like trying to like make it seem like we're any type of like psyche expert or anything like that. We just know that doing this bus for us was something that really helped us through difficult times and through difficult emotions for me. But yeah, I don't really have like too much more, so I think we could basically kind of wrap this podcast up for today. But it's been really fun. I mean, hopefully if you like it, like get a hold of us like somehow, like on our Instagrams or Green Guru podcast,
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
and like just hit us up and let us know what you thought. I think that this is something that we may start doing often, because when we're drinking our coffees in the morning, we get really wrapped up in conversing on topics. But it was great to hear from you, or it was great talking with you today, Trevor, and I'm glad that we recorded it. And if you're out there today, just like, what can you do to make the earth a better place?
Wow, well said. All right, well, that'll wrap it up. Have a good day, folks. Follow us at the Good Life Bus. Our personal handles are in the bio. It's Trevor A. Parks and Melanie Parks with a V instead of an A. And then, yeah, YouTube, Mel and Trev. And then Green Guru on SoundCloud. Thank you.